Court of Honor for soon-to-be Eagle Scouts, Charles Acevedo, Rob Sadler, Gerry Quinnan, Peter Patterson, Tyler Rodriguez, and Brian Soukup. I'd like to officially convene this Court of Honor. Now, can we please stand for the presentation of the colors? Troop attention. Color guard, advance. Scout salute. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. 2. Color guard, post the colors. Will Scouts and Scouters please join me in the Scout oath? On my honor, I will do my best to do my duty to guard my country, to obey the Scout law, help other people at all times, to keep myself physically strong, mentally awake, and morally straight. 2. Color guard dismissed. We now all be seated. I'd now like to invite the Assistant Scoutmaster for the 49ers Patrol, Mr. Lou Bruin, and he will now offer the opening prayer.
Lord, make us instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. Where there is sadness, joy. O Divine Master, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive. It is in pardoning that we are pardoned. And it is in dying that we are born to eternal life. Amen.
Thank you, Mr. Bruin. Members of Troop Corps Type 7, we will now describe the 7 ranks of Boy Scouting. The Scout must pass through all of these ranks in order to reach the final level of Eagle Scout. I'll now ask Sunil Supernath to come up and describe the rank of Scout.
My name is Sunil, and I am a Scout. The beginning rank. In Troop 457, I am known as the Trailblazer for my first year. Joining the Boy Scout troop is a new and exciting experience for me. Even if I was previously in the Cub Scout pack, I've mentioned the Scout oath and the Scout law. Begun to make friends with my new patrol, and I'm preparing for my first troop camping trip. I try to follow the older Scouts' example, and I look forward to having adventures and friendships like theirs.
Thank you. Joseph Rose will now describe the rank of Tenderfoot.
I'm Joe Rose, and I'm a Tenderfoot. I'm working to become a team player and taking more responsibility for myself. I'm also learning basic skills like fire safety, knots, first aid, and hiking. That sometimes challenge my patience and dedication. The hard work is worth it because I will use these skills for the rest of my life. Every experience teaches me more about the kind of scout I can become as I strive for the next rank.
Thank you.
My name is Chase, and I'm a second-class scout. The troop now assigns me more important tasks like cooking meals, building fires, using knives and axes, and carrying flags in the troop color guard. I participate in service projects with the troop that show how we work together on Eagle projects and other volunteer efforts. I interact more with the older scouts who encourage me to achieve first class and someday Eagle.
My name is Mickey and I'm a first-class scout. I have more responsibilities and outdoor experience for my scouting career. I learned safe swimming, first aid, and rescue skills so I can be useful in an emergency. I am also prepared to become a more active leader in my troop and my community by meeting civic leaders and learning about government. By now, I'm volunteering on the Eagle Scout projects, who guide me through my first year and the troop, and I'm looking forward to someday being where they stand now.
Hello, I'm Harry Oakes, and I'm a Star Scout. I've begun to demonstrate the trustworthiness and leadership I've learned from the older scouts and my scoutmasters, and can be relied on to complete any job I'm given. I'm continuing to earn merit badges that demonstrate a vast array of skills in the outdoors, personal life, citizenship, hobbies, and sports. To ascend to the next rank, I am required to help my patrol and troop by holding a position of responsibility, which can be anything from den chief to senior patrol leader to scribe or quartermaster or bugler from the troop. The willingness to take on this responsibility is an important step on the climb to Eagle.
My name is Kurt Warner. I'm a Life Scout. I'm a fully committed member in Scouting who continues my leadership role in the troop. This rank may take several years to complete. I must earn 21 or more merit badges in total. I'm also ready to travel across the country for exciting high-adventure trips in backpacking, sailing, canoeing, and kayaking that will challenge my outdoor strength, stamina, and resourcefulness. But I still attend local troop campouts to be a friend and role model to the younger scouts. At this rank, I must plan and carry out my Eagle Service project using all the skills and leadership I've learned in my years with the troop.
Thank you. And finally, Maddie Bruin will describe the rank of Eagle Scout.
My name is Matt Brew, and I'm an Eagle Scout. This is the highest rank in Scouting. An Eagle represents the best of the diverse Scouting experience, well-rounded curiosity, public service, leadership, outdoor know-how, and active participation in citizenship and community. Earning this rank shows that the Scout can manage the logistics and paperwork of a complex service project, while also serving as a planner and leader. Completing an Eagle project is the height of a Scout's career, and an achievement that will leave a lasting impression on them. But every Eagle Scout recognizes that he did not achieve this rank alone. He's had committed parents who drove him to meetings, reminded him of deadlines, and of course made him pack extra socks. And he's had the support of loyal scouts who came out on rainy days to work on his Eagle project, the friendship of buddies who shared a tent with him at Yoshi, and the guidance of assistant scoutmasters who challenged him to push his own limits and to guide it and to complete his lagging merit runs. Finally, he's had a dedicated scoutmaster who helped him grow from an 11-year-old scout to a young man. The Trail to Eagle includes many opportunities not just to lead, but to listen, to learn, and to encourage others. Eagle Scout is the one rank that follows you through life. It represents membership and a brotherhood that, no matter where you go, acknowledges you as worthy of trust and responsibility. It is a mark of how far you've come from your days as a trailblazer, and it is a reminder of the lessons and leadership that you will take with you as far as you go.
Thank you, Mr. Brin. This is the largest Eagle Scout Corn of Honor 457 has ever held. These 6 Eagle Scouts were in the Rough Riders and 49ers patrols that started in April 2005 and finished in 2012 with 50% of the boys still active in Scouting. Today's color guard includes members of their patrols and Mr. Brun. The Assistant Scoutmaster for the 49ers is serving as this ceremony's chaplain. Now we will hear from 4 other Assistant Scoutmasters who worked closely with the patrols during their 7 years in 457. They have seen these Eagles through many trips, merit badges, and adventures. Gerry Patterson guided these patrols through their first year as trailblazers, recruited and prepared the parents who became new Assistant Scoutmasters for the patrols, and took the Scouts on just about every campout they did with the troop. Larry McWilliams, the Assistant Scoutmaster for the John Paul Jones Patrol, a year ahead of our Eagle Scouts, led the patrols through many high-adventure trips, especially this famed backpack. Lisa Soukup and Ralph Acevedo, along with Lou Brun, Ed Rodriguez, and Alan Soukup, became the Assistant Scoutmasters for these patrols, and found out firsthand what it took to move this group along the scouting trail. We also will have Mr. Philip Barnes, Music Director at Rockville High School, who taught both Ian and Patterson and Ross Apter, come and speak with us today. First, Mr. Patterson.
Hi, you back here. There's 6 of them, so I have copious notes. But on the other hand, we have the Ravens are on right now. The Redskins are coming up, so. Anybody see that? It's in the Post today. It's an eagle. I'm not going to spend a lot of time with this. I'm not going to tell a whole bunch of stories, although God knows there are a few. I've had 3 of these guys since they were pilot cubs. Ross, Charles, and of course Ian. That goes back a ways. But I'm going to give you some statistics about the 6 of these guys. First of all, let me explain to everybody, all you guys, you young guys out there that want to make Eagle, and you all better want to make Eagle, because that's what we want. That's a good thing to do. You're looking at a bunch of very different guys that got here in different ways, and it all works. And I'm going to tell you how it all works out. This group, we started with 30 kids, 30 young guys, okay? And of that, we made 14 of them made Eagles. 14 of them made Eagles. 16 of them, there were 16 that did not. There was 16 that finished the program. They went through the 12th grade. Now, I don't know, are we all done? We're all done. We're all 18, right? So that's all group. Okay. A lot of their patrol members were in that first group that came in, and Matt Brood, who just spoke to you about being an Eagle Scout, is all in the same group. I want to thank, before we get any further into this, all the people that were mentioned, but I also want to mention Tom Maddox. He was also part of this patrol, and I don't want to forget that, because Mr. Maddox stepped down from actually helping firsthand and took care of all the records that you all have seen me come up here with time after time after time with these Eagle Scouts. Without these things, I could not reconstruct what happened. So I want to thank Mr. Maddox along with those others. Those were all people that I got to work with that first year, and they did just a super job bringing this patrol all the way through. These guys earned 173 merit badges. Woo! We've got 619 nights camping. That's kind of silly, right? There was some differences between these kids. I would be remiss if I did not say that Charles has 219 of them. There is nothing better to do. That's the truth. There's nothing better to do. The experiences that you get going camping with this troop are incredible. The things that we do, things that we've done are unbelievable. 41 scouts. These guys helped 41 scouts make Eagles. 41. How many scouts do we have that are Eagles now? Does anybody know the actual number? Is it 90? Is it 100? I don't know. Does anybody know? Nobody.
It's more than 75.
More than 75. I think it was 90.
78.
78. Very good. Somebody has the numbers. That's great. 78 scouts have made Eagle, and these guys participated in 41 Eagle Scout projects. How about that? That's pretty cool. Now, I would also be remiss if I didn't tell you that that's misleading, because Ian, for example, how many do we have? 78? He's probably done 70. They're not on the record because he was 4 years old the first time he did it. This group represents 8 complete trips down the C&O Canal. Charles has 5 of them. Ian has the other 3. Okay, but I had to say 8 complete trips. Actually, they're done in 3 days, 2 days, and 6 days. So both of them have completed the whatever that is. It's a big thing. It's cool. We've got 3 SPLs among this group, and SPL in this troop is not something to be taken lightly. There's not 20 people that you're in charge of. There's 110 or something. 2 of them ran this troop, this army, at Goshen, which is really a test. So we have 3 SPLs, Ian, Charles, and Ross, all were SPLs. Quartermaster, my favorite job, and one of the most important ones, we have 3 of those. So, and we have a couple of assistant quartermasters, which again is another important job. And now here's another one. This one kind of gets me. We have, how many den chiefs do we have now out there? We have 9. I hear that the other day, 9 den chiefs. Is Scotty here? We have like 9 den chiefs, right? These guys were all den chiefs. Most of them were den chiefs. We have actually, how many of these? Let me see if I can figure it out. I had a note here about den chiefs. Den chiefs, there's 4 of them. 4 of them were served as den chiefs during their time in this troop. We had a couple troop guides. We had a publisher, historian, and librarian. They covered the gamut of what was going on here. Now, for anybody that says they don't have time to do all these things, and I get that a lot. I don't have time to be in Scouts. I can't do this. I can't do that. I can tell you that we have the IB program up here represented. We have National Honor Society, and we have many sports. We have lacrosse, soccer, cross country, baseball, track, and football. And one of them for 2 years coached football with me. So if you don't have time, it's because you didn't make it. There's time. I have 2 members up here that played in, this was a lot of fun for me, I have to say, Mr. Barnes. This was really a kick for me to have Ian and Ross in the orchestra, and Ian in that jazz ensemble for 4 years. That's a really cool thing. I had a lot of fun doing that. So I just want to say that. So also the pit orchestra and probably the shows that they served in during their course at Wood and in Rockville High School. So those are a big deal. 32 trips to Goshen Scout Camp among them. 32. I had 3 of them did the Pamlico Sea Kayak trip, our favorite trip. What are you laughing at? Come on. We couldn't escape the sun, the wind blew. It was a nightmare. I had a blast. If Lucas Irvin could have found the food, we'd have been in good shape. I was fairly weak by the time we got back. We went to Philmont, 2 of them. Charles and Ian went to Philmont with me. It was great. We had Sea Base. We went to Sea Base. All these experiences that have come out of the scout troop, these 6 guys have done, one time or another. I've got to stand up here. I had the privilege of standing up here and doing, I don't know how many histories for these Eagle Scouts. I stood up here and done a song and dance with Mr. McWilliams, who you're going to hear from next. We've done it together. We hold hands and sing a song. I've had Mr. Bass come up here with me, and we were like, well, I would say we were the 3 Stooges, but we were missing one of us. So, yeah, whatever. And I thank you for coming. And it's been a lot of fun doing that. Anyway, that's pretty much what I have to say. I just wanted to point out that there are 6 different approaches. Here they are, all of them. They've all done it in a different way, and they all made Eagle. And that's what's important. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Patterson. I'd like Mr. McWilliams come up and talk about this.
Thanks, Matt. Well, here we are. It's a real honor to be here to recognize what I'm calling the Super 6. It's important to reflect on how they arrived at this destination and what it means to be an Eagle Scout. And Mr. Patterson he's detailed how they got there, how they earned the rank. But I want to ask, what have they really learned? What is an Eagle Scout? So I'm going to describe that in using an acrostic poem with each of the letters of the word scout. So we've got scout. An Eagle Scout is strong in both mind and body. The honorees tonight, as we heard, are all athletes. They have entered the arena and have emerged triumphant. They each set a goal for themselves of reaching the pinnacle of scouting. And through their skill and perseverance have emerged victorious. But the C in Eagle Scout has character. The American travel writer Horace Kephart said in his 1906 guidebook to traveling in the wilderness, quote, "The joys and sorrows of camp life and the proportion of each to the other depend very much on how one chooses his companions. Because not every good fellow in town makes a pleasant comrade in the woods." A lot of times it's not easy out there. It's tough, challenging, and it becomes a test of character. I've seen it. It's not a pretty sight. But these guys have passed the test. Oh, because an Eagle Scout is an outdoorsman. He knows how to camp, swim, hike, use woodman's tools, build a fire, find his way with a map and a compass. You need to know what you're doing out there, and you need to have knowledge of camping and woodcraft, and I'm here to tell you these guys do. You, an Eagle Scout, is unwavering. He is true to his God, to his country, to his family, friends, and to himself. He is determined, steady, tough. He takes the task at hand and sees it through to the finish. There is purpose and consistency. When the road narrows and steeply climbs, it is the unwavering scout who manages to continue. Lastly, T, an Eagle Scout, is talented. Our talents take many. Our talent takes many shapes of. Listen up, okay? Listen up. Our talents take many shapes and forms. The parable recorded in Matthew 25 teaches that everyone has a duty to improve the natural gifts and abilities that God has given them. Your talents are to be shared. Pay it forward. Teach whatever you know as best as you can. And give back wherever you can. Stay involved in your church, your school, and your community. Do a good turn daily. Be prepared. You heard this song before? Keep the Scout Oath and Law. I know you've heard that before. Remember those who helped you by helping others who need your talents. For you younger Scouts out there, I want to say a word. I want to let you know and tell you that you probably heard this as well. The path to Eagle is not a race. It's a journey. It's to be savored, enjoyed, shared, have fun. So again, quote Kephart, there are no friendships like those that are made under canvas and in the open field. So guys, congratulations on your terrific achievement. We're all very proud of you. Be proud of yourselves.
I'd now like to ask Mr. Barnes to come up and speak. Thank you.
Good afternoon. As Mr. Patterson mentioned, I had the privilege of having both Ian and Ross in my program for 4 years. And about a month ago, Ian called me and said, you know, we're having a report of honor ceremony January 6th, and Ross and I would like you to come and say a few words. And you know, the first thought going through my mind was, as a former scout myself, and understanding how important this day is to you guys, I was honored. Sure, you know, I'll come. And one of the things that I do on the side is I also help out with the Baltimore Ravens marching band. And wasn't really thinking about the fact that this was going to be on a Sunday and that they might be in the playoffs. And so I'm thinking, well, you know, there's still some time, and maybe there'll be a away game or whatever. And of course, no, it was a home game. And I said, well, maybe we'll get the Saturday game. And no, we got the Sunday game. And then Bray Lewis announced it was his last game. And I said, well, maybe Cincinnati will win out. We can have an AFC championship game at home. And I know they lost yesterday. And then on top of it, Ian tells me earlier this week, you know, we're going to really try to be done early so that everyone can get home for the Redskins game. And of course, you know, all this week I've had my friends and my family calling me, texting me, and whatnot, saying, you know, I can't believe you get to go to the game on Sunday, and you know, I have to say, well, I'm not going to the game on Sunday, and what's going on? And, you know, and I told them that I was going to be here today, and I, you know, I'm happy to be here today and I'm happy to honor that commitment, because that's what today is all about, is a commitment. And a commitment to doing something well. And that's what I enjoyed about having especially Ian and Ross on the program. Ian was a bass player, Mr. Patterson mentioned, in both the orchestra and in the jazz band, all 4 years. It's not very often that I take a freshman into the jazz band. It's my most elite group. And those of you who've been in the musical group, you know that the bass voice, and Ian's a bass player, that bass voice is always the most important voice in the group. I didn't always let him know that because I didn't want his head to get too big. But to have him for 4 years, I never had to worry about anything, any group. If I needed a bass voice, Ian was always that guy. And with Ross, he came in as already an accomplished violinist. He was my concert master last year in the orchestra. Also made it a point to come out for the marching band. Learned 2 different percussion instruments. Played them well enough. But again, someone who was always there. Both of them were in the pit orchestra. Both of them always came on the trips. Like I said, it wasn't just a commitment to being in the group. It was a commitment to being in it and doing it well. And of course, being an Eagle Scout for all 6 of you epitomizes that idea, that you've made this commitment and you've done it well enough to achieve at the highest level. So, as I said earlier, I was honored to be invited, and even more so to come up and speak. And congratulations to all 6 of you, and especially to Ross and me. You guys definitely deserve it. So, thank you.
And now I'd like to ask Ms. Soukup to speak. Thank you.
Well, Gerry just asked me to make sure that I tell everybody that these guys collectively had 1,660 service hours. So I don't know how they got anything else done doing that, but they did a great job. So, as they said, here we are. I was watching these guys when they came up on stage, and somehow they arranged themselves so the tallest guys are at the end, and the 2 shortest ones are in the middle. For you all who have been here for the last 7 years, the last time I saw them in that lineup, they were standing on Rope Monkey Bridge down at Goshen, their 2nd year. And about a minute later, this one, Brian, goes flying off, falls, breaks his arm, and that's the end of that week for him. So I'm very glad that they're not on anything risky at this moment. I want them to just don't hurt anything. I got the first aid kit in the back, but don't do anything to them. So these guys did everything together. We had such a big group, as Gerry said, 30 kids, that we had 2 patrols, but we just took them all through the course, all the way through as a big group. You all went on every trip together. Your first year, you went on that Antietam camp out in November. All you guys remember how cold it was. You all talked about the polar bear points you got. And on that, you did a map and compass hike, and that explained to me that his method for finding his way was, quote, to follow those guys in front of me. So actually, as I've been getting ready for this, all I could come up with was to tell all these great stories on these guys, because they've all done such marvelous things over the years. And for especially the younger scouts, and more especially for their parents and their ASMs, you need to know where these guys started. They were all young scouts at one point, and they all did just amazing things that we're still talking about around the campfire. Now, Ian was our legacy scout. As you heard, he'd been following along in his older brother's scout activities since he was 4. When he finally became a Boy Scout himself, Ian was already like a first-class scout. I felt better having him along on the trips because honestly, if I needed a propane tank hooked up or I needed to get some wet wood burning and figure out where to put my tent so I didn't get flooded out, I just asked Ian and he'd fix it up for me. So it was great. He was the perfect one to have along. It was like having an extra ASM. But Ian still had his misadventures. He managed to set his boot soles on fire on one campsite. And he didn't really worry about it until they fell off on his next backpacking trip. At Kerr Lake, he managed to spray himself in the eye with bug spray. So, you know, this happens to all of the best scouts. They all have these moments. But he was at every Eagle Scout project, and he was working harder than 2 scouts could. He was on every canoe trip we went on down the Potomac. He came on every camporee and Weeblos weekend to help out, and he could handle any crisis. One time on a whitewater trip, we were finishing dinner and burning out a Dutch oven. I turned around and the propane tank hose was on fire, shooting flames out of it. He just goes over, he says, "You just turned off the valve. It's fine." And it was. And I was sure we were going to blow something up, but he was fine. Now Tyler came on a lot of our trips, mostly in the winter, because he had a baseball schedule he was committed to. But he also got to Goshen most years. I was asking for him what his big moment was. He said, "Well, I remember going on that fishing trip on the Chesapeake Bay. I didn't catch any fish, but I did catch a stingray." So that was his big special moment there. He also was on our kayak trip down in the Outer Banks a few years ago. And he had a great time running around Ocracoke Island when we finished kayaking. The other guys and Tyler ganged up on me. I said, "This is a great trip. We should try for the 50-mile award on kayaks." They said, "No, we're not doing that. We're doing the shortest distance to get to where we got to go." And then they ganged up and insisted we had to finish the 37 miles of paddling in 3 days because they couldn't stand one more day sleeping on sand. So instead they got an extra day to Ocracoke Island and they ran all over the place in air conditioning and ate ice cream and declared that the best day of the entire trip. So fine, paddle 19 miles and get your ice cream. The next time we'll break you into 4 days, I tell you. Now, there was another trip that all of these guys, I think, went on, Kerr Lake campouts. And that's one that happens right after school lets out in June, about every 3rd year. It's a great trip. They just hang out, lounge by a lake, go fishing, go tubing, chill out. Now, that happened to be Charles's first trip with the troop. Apparently, he got very homesick. Very homesick. And you wouldn't believe that this guy who's gone and then spent 215 nights away from home was that homesick on that first trip, but somehow he overcame it, which was great because he has been on, as you heard, just about every trip this gang has ever done. And his favorite trips were always the active ones. He went on every biking trip. He was out on the backpacking trips. He just liked to go. And he also was fantastic just with his woodcraft skills, camping skills. He could make an emergency shelter on our survival trips that could rival, you know, a palace out in Potomac. It was amazing. And somehow, with all of these campouts, I think 80 trips he's been on, he never got any injury worse than blisters. I don't know how he did it. Well, I said, he got blisters. He got a few times blisters. But he did tell me that he suffers mental scarring from our 4-day sea kayaking trip to the Outer Banks. And he says that was the hardest, worst trip ever. And I've heard it from enough other guys on that trip that I'm starting to think, I need tougher scouts. Somehow they were surprised that we had sand at these beach campsites we were going to. And so we're still arguing over this. I don't know how Ian and Andy and Charles and the other guys on this found hiking 75 miles at Philmont to be easier than sleeping 2 nights on the sand, but they did. The leaders also have a lot of adventures with these guys. The Kerr Lake trip brought all sorts of young scouts together with the experienced ASMs, and they just had to figure it out. Now, I got a story about John McGovern, and we don't often tell our stories about the Scoutmaster, but this was a good one. He was sitting around the campfire late one night at Kerr Lake, and he had his own sleeping bag rolled out next to the campfire where he likes to sleep. Well, Brian apparently was still up, and he came over and said, I can't sleep. So John told him, just sit down and hang out by the fire until you get sleepy. And they sat there and stared at the fire for a while. And then John looks over a few minutes later and sees that Brian has climbed into John's sleeping bag and was sound asleep. Just like those mice that you guys have nesting in your chuck boxes at Goshen, an uninvited visitor. So John had to chase Brian out and send him back to his tent. But, you know, they just kept going. It didn't seem to faze them too much. Now, for all the ASMs who suffered through the years of these patrols, you'll remember our Thursday night troop meetings got to be total chaos. We had the biggest group of trailblazers this troop had ever seen to that point, and they talked nonstop. When the parents saw what you guys were doing to poor Mr. Patterson, 5 of us signed up to be assistant scoutmasters, and we got ready to take over your patrols the following year. Now, we still had 23 scouts that second year, and I don't know how we made it through. You guys were amazing. I do remember poor Mr. Brune, he had this mantra. He would always tell me, "It's all good." Now, sometimes it came out like a prayer. Sometimes he said it with a lot of hope. And every so often, I would hear this desperate tone in his voice, but I knew what he meant. It is all good. They're all going to grow up, and they're going to do fine. We also had all of our other ASMs. We had Alan, Soukup, Ed Rodriguez, and I've forgotten Tom Maddie had done this with us for a while, as well as some of the other parents. And everybody take turns trying to keep order and take the paper clips and the pencils away that they were throwing at each other while we were trying to teach our advancements. Now, I saw more of Ross and Gerry at our meetings than I did on the campouts, and that was fantastic because they were very capable and confident when they wanted to be. They would be very helpful, very friendly, and very organized. You just needed to get them to step it up. One time we were trying for like an hour to get you guys to pick projects for your family like merit badge. All you needed to do was think up a project to do at home. It went on and nobody had anything. So finally we stood you all up around the room, turned you face to the wall, and played the quiet game. You weren't allowed to turn around until you had a project, and nobody could talk until everyone had a project. Well, first of all, Ross was done in like 3 minutes. He turns around, he's ready to go, and I think he had it figured out all along. He just wasn't going to show up the rest of the guys and end the fun. And within about 12 minutes, everybody had a project. It didn't take long, we just had to make you do it. So that was fun for us, learning what it took to motivate people. Finally, your Eagle projects fit in with the troop's tradition of needing a few extra challenges. Gerry had his memorable Eagle project when we had to go through last summer's derecho, and it screwed up their scheduling. He was dealing with rescheduling and power outages and notifying people who didn't have working phones. And that's just part of the course. Ross managed to do his Eagle project on a rainy weekend where everybody was digging out foundations in the mud in the pouring rain. And Charles's fire hydrant painting project, that's how we found out that yellow and blue paint mixed together makes green. We didn't know that, but it made us be a little more careful with our painting job. Ross also discovered how do you clean a gallon of blue paint out of your car trunk. Now Tyler, he managed to pull together one of the fastest Eagle projects I think we've ever done in this troop. I think it was 2 months from the start to the finish, something like that. He went and did a bike collection that worked out really great. And we kept saying, you don't have enough time, you'll never get this done before it gets really cold. Oh, he had it done. I think he presented it before he'd even seen Mr. Long, so he just zipped right along with it. So that's enough stories on you. I've got many more for those who want to hear the real dirt later on. Just come find me. And congratulations to you guys and the other 5 Eagle Scouts that are still here from our patrols. I'll be telling stories about you for years to come around the campfire. And I'm sure those new Scouts will not make the same mistakes that you have.
And finally, Mr. Acevedo.
notes. Somebody handed me a piece of paper that's a silver minivan with their lights on out there. So if anybody driving a silver minivan, I'm just kidding. Also, we have a MC here that I believe shocked the world. And I wanted to bring him to the fold because he was a tremendous part of this group here. Matt LaCastro. One day he decided to show up on a backpacking trip on the most busiest section of the Appalachian Trail, which is the Maryland portion, because it's very flat and it's easy to hike. So we like to hike that quite a bit. But I just wanted to let you all know that he decided to show up with a brown jumpsuit that he hiked with. And I don't know what he was thinking, but it looked like a big Tootsie Roll. I don't know. So I was wondering if you burned it already. You burned it yet?
Still alive.
Okay, all right. What can I tell you? I had the distinct privilege of starting these gentlemen off on their scouting careers. About their around their third year, I stepped back a little bit, and I took over my younger son's patrol, and I'm currently with this patrol right now. But I had the opportunity to usher these guys into the scouting world and take them to their first years of Goshen and camping trips and what have you. And I just want to tell a couple stories about each one of them in alphabetical order here. Let's see, where's my notes? One thing that I did want to mention was the fact that Mr. Patterson has all the notes, and he's very thorough when it comes to tracking those kind of things. But one thing that he did miss, and that was that between these 6 individuals, the one common thread that pulls them all together are the service hours. They spend between them 1,600 service hours. You didn't miss it? Oh, I wasn't listening. I'm sorry. Oh, you told me? Oh, my bad. But 1,600 service hours. I mean, absolutely impressive. If they take anything out of scouting, it's service to others. I don't know where they're going to go in life, but whatever they do, I know that they will keep the community and others in their heart, and they will always serve someone else. My son, my wife, and my other son, David, always have the opportunity when I'm driving my car that there's something there's somebody that's stuck outside on the road or something like that, and I always tend to stop and pull over, and they're like, oh, here we go. Let's go help these people. But hopefully they take that lesson forward and help.
Let me tell you this, 3 of them told me that they stopped turning in their service hours 3 years ago.
Why did you stop turning in your service?
They didn't need anymore. They were done.
Yeah, but scholarships are on service hours.
What the scholarship be? Yeah.
Well, service to others is key in scouting, and I hope you guys do take that forward. Alphabetically, I'm sorry, when I started this career, I was like this. Now I gotta find my glasses in order to read. Where are my glasses? Oh, here they are, sorry. These are my backpacking glasses, so I have to unfold them, pack them out. Okay, all right. Oh, good. So alphabetically, we're going to start with Tyler Rodriguez. Where is he at? There he is in the end. Sorry. Tyler has a nickname that he's not aware of that he's carried throughout his scouting career, and it's Bond. Tyler Bond. He is probably the most cool cat I've ever seen. Nothing phases him. At Goshen, we ran through, I think it was our first night, you all remember that? We had this huge rainstorm. You know, remember the huge, we sat there, we stood there for hours on end with this rainstorm,
And we stood there on top of the picnic tables that are at each campsite, and we're managing the tarps that are above each campsite, the cooking area and the sitting area. And we spent a good hour and a half, 2 hours, maneuvering these canvases, and they weigh like 400 pounds, 800 with the water in them, to prevent them from collapsing. And we sat there for an hour and a half, 2 hours, and Tyler is like, "Whatever, this is cool, this is all good." And about an hour and a half into it, he goes, "Hey, Mr. Acevedo, I got an idea. Why don't you just kick in the legs of the tarp, and we don't have to hold up all the tarp to prevent the water from gathering in the canvas." Good idea. So after an hour and a half, we solved that problem with Tyler's input. That was awesome. One of the other things that I will always remember Tyler by, and that is, and this is actually in his later years, when he was, an adult scout. Because as they get older, they seem to, know what's going on. And that is, you will never ever see him anywhere without that. He is on his phone 24/7. I think he sleeps with it connected to his ear, and he's texting while he's asleep. I had the opportunity to take Tyler and Michael to the beach while his parents were at Myrtle Beach. How was that? But I had the best week with them over in Bethany, and texting all the time. It was great. You'd have a conversation and he'd be, "What?" He wouldn't miss the text, but he'd miss what you were saying. So he's probably the coolest person you'll ever meet. Nothing phases him. Absolutely nothing. One of the things we also did with him that I can remember was the World War II outing up in Reading, Pennsylvania. And let me tell you, it was the hottest day of the year. It was 112, and water was nowhere to be had. We were in the middle of a battle scene, so it was kind of hard to get water. But these guys, how many of you were also on that trip? And you were, right? And it was absolutely vicious. But these guys came to me, and that's part of as crazy as he ever got was the water deal. Yorktown. I was with him at the Yorktown. We went down to South Carolina and spent a weekend on the USS Yorktown. And somehow they decided they wanted to know if we could do hide and seek on an 850-foot long aircraft carrier. Me being the responsible adult leader, looked at them and said, "Sure! Why not?" And unbeknownst to me, there are like 7 sections of this aircraft carrier that are divided into these tours and what have you, but over 28 decks, right? All the way up to the tower where the captain sits, down to where the engineers are in the engine room. And I said, "Sure, be back in an hour." What scout at the age of 12 has a watch? Not one. Luckily, we were on a boat. So an hour passed, and next thing you know, I'm trying to hunt these guys down, and I decided to join in on the game. So it was a lot of fun. So Tyler, stay cool, use the phone sparingly. Well, good job. The next on my list is alphabetically Brian Soukup. Where's he at? There he is. Brian Soukup. Brian, when we started scouting, Brian liked to experiment. He liked to experiment with the patience of all his adult leaders. He found ingenious ways, because we never understood. He found ingenious ways to create search and rescue games. He found creative ways to break an arm. He found creative ways to really do things. And I think that carries him forward in life. He has always had a different way of looking at things. You have always done it your way. Am I wrong? He's always done it his way. But we did talk to you every once in a while. To straighten you out a little bit. But the one thing that I do remember about Brian, and it surprised me a little bit, and I hope you somehow, I don't know if you lost interest in it, but I hope you may go in that direction. And that was one day we were on a camping trip, and off the side of the path there was a deer carcass. And this deer carcass had been there a while. You still have it? You donated it. Awesome. Awesome. It was a clean deer skeleton, exactly. It was completely bleached by the moon, baked by the sun, and it was the coolest thing I'd ever seen. And he proceeded to collect it bone by bone. And there are 237 bones in a deer body. Right? And he collected it bone by bone, and he donated it to the Nature Center. He was cleaning a path area over by the Nature Center, the animal rehab facility in Gaithersburg, and building bird nests for some of the birds at the Nature Center. And if you continue in that field, I think you will go far and wide. So please keep that in mind as you go forward. You'll go a long way. Next on my list, I have Gerry Quinnan. This guy right here, I had the privilege of him being the first patrol leader of his patrol. And he got to go to Goshen as the first patrol leader. And let me tell you, when you go to Goshen and you go to this huge reservation, it's got this ocean of a lake, and it's got this huge campground, which you know where nothing is. And he gets to handle one of the largest patrols that ever showed up at Goshen, of 14 kids. He was like, I ain't gonna make it. But, about third day in, he had an epiphany. He said, Mr. Acevedo, I can't do this. I said, why? Do you see what I have to work with? I mean, they're not so bad. I said, what's wrong? What's wrong with the guys? And he said, they don't listen to me. Really? You guys don't listen to me? But no, he had an epiphany. He was like, you know what? This is a hard job. This is a difficult job. And I said, you know what? You're right, it is a difficult job. So I said, let me tell you what. Your brother's right up the hill here. So I got his brother. And I said, you know what? You need to talk to your younger brother and have a discussion of what it takes to run a patrol. So off they went. About 5 minutes later, he comes back down the hill. He's got a big old smile on his face and goes, you know what? I got this, Mr. Acevedo. I'm going to go down there. I'm going to go talk to the kids, and I'm going to yell at them. And I'm going to yell at them again. So he made it through this first week of Goshen. But one of the other things that impressed me a lot about Mr. Quinnan is that he didn't do a lot of camping with us. He did do a lot. He was active the first couple of years, and then he got really involved in extracurricular activities. I mean, he's like Mr. Social Guy over here. Next to Tyler Rodriguez over there, he's like, he knows everybody. He's just doing all the clubs and doing everything. But that's okay. Because I look through his records here, and I see that he shows up, once in a while. keeps that contact going, earns the next merit badge, gets in his next position of responsibility, and before you know it, he's up here as an Eagle Scout. So those of you out there who are doing all sorts of stuff, oh, and I wanted to mention this. Charles did, was it 219 nights camping? He did over 1,000 miles on his mother's bike at Goshen. I mean, not at Goshen, I'm sorry, on the Acevedo Canal on 5 trips. But yet, he holds a varsity letter in track, was the captain of his track team. So if you think, all you younger scouts out there, all you current scouts that are in the middle of trying to handle, all these things, Gerry Quinnan, he's handling all these things, and yet he's able to attain the rank of Eagle. He's able to manage. And that's one of the key strengths of an Eagle Scout, is managing your time efficiently. So those of you that are out there thinking they cannot do it, here's a roadmap. You need to call them, ask them what's going on, how did they achieve this almost insurmountable task when you start. But yet, it seems easy enough for these guys, it should be easy enough for you guys. Next on my list I have Apter. Mr. Apter. Some people didn't want me to tell this story, but I have to tell this story. Every scout that goes to Goshen, years of the carnivorous nipplefish. Yes, people thought it went extinct. People hadn't seen it for years. But let me tell you, we were waiting in line, we're going to go do our swim test, and we're all discussing it. Oh, do they have teeth? Oh, the whole thing. We all jump in the water. Everybody comes out of the water, except for Apter. Somehow he's in the water and he's fighting with this fish. And he comes in, he gets out of the water. Mr. Acevedo, you said there weren't any nipplefish. It's like, oh. But he was the only person that I know of in the 7 years since has ever been attacked by these carnivorous fish. Have you heard of anybody else? I think he's just telling the story, I don't know. But Ross, I had the opportunity to hike with him on the Death March. If none of you are aware of the Death March, it is a 43, 42, 45, depending on who you're talking to, mile hike across the Appalachian Trail in Maryland. The first time with Ian, Ross, Charles, those three, and Ross is a runner. He has tremendous endurance. At that time, had you started running at that time? He had started running. He'd been running for a year and a half or so. And he decided, this hiking's got to be easy. No big problem, right? So he gets up there on the Appalachian Trail and he hikes with the crew. And he is going down the trail. And I think it was at the end of day 1. I believe that's correct. Day 1 we did 18 miles. 18 miles. And he comes walking into camp. And he doesn't know that. He's completely gone. He doesn't know he's walking into camp. He's just glazed over and he's just like, oh my gosh. He comes walking into camp and goes, Mr. Acevedo, I'm done. I said, are you sure? It's not a problem if you're done. If you feel like you cannot continue, that's perfectly okay. Believe me, 18 miles in a day is nothing to shake a stick at. I tried. Didn't work. But he said he was done. And the look on his face told the story. He was absolutely, I was impressed. Everybody thought he did a great job. But he himself was absolutely disappointed in himself. He could not believe that he could not handle the hiking, that he could not handle that trip. And I think And I had the opportunity as well to be part of the track team, well, not part of the track team, but the loudest, most obnoxious parent in the stands, timing them and telling what their times were and what have you. But watching him run in high school at Rockville, I had the opportunity to see him run, and I could tell every time he came around that last bend, he would remember this trip, this hiking trip, and he'd start to do that chariots of fire thing. And he'd turn that corner and he'd start wailing his elbows and his head would go back and he'd go, you know what? I'm not going to stop. I'm going to finish it. Every moment I could see his eyes get bigger and go, this isn't happening again. So that's probably the one moment I'm sorry, the macaroni incident. For those of you that think that the religion is not ever, listened to by your kids, it is. They actually do listen. They actually do listen. This was a moment at Goshen when Ross was doing his program, and he was looking forward to the night's meal, and that was macaroni and cheese and hot dogs. So he comes back to camp, and the cooks had prepared everything, and he arrives at the campsite, and he's ready to chow down on the macaroni and cheese, but the cooks mixed in the hot dogs with the macaroni and cheese. And he got upset, because he did not know whether or not the hot dogs were kosher or not. And he did not eat the macaroni and cheese. I was impressed. Good job, guys. Next in line, I have Ian Patterson. Ian. Been in scouting since he was 4, you said? How many knives does he have? I believe, how many knives do you have? You know? No. I think the first 4 years of his scouting career, or are you still doing it? He's still doing it, you know? He would come up to me on each individual camping trip, and he'd go, "Look, Mr. Acevedo, I got a new knife." Really? Oh, it's awesome, Nick. Look what he can do. It was great. We always had this moment in which we connected with our knives. It was awesome. One of the other things that he ceremoniously took on was he was the resident pyrotechnician. He was our fire lord. He would somehow shoo all the other kids away, and he would manage the fire. He would start it, taking 2 hours. No, it didn't matter. Rain, sun, didn't matter. 3 seconds, didn't matter. But he always found a way to get the fire going and keep it going, and then turn the duty over to a lesser scout once the fire was warm. He also had a knack, once he got that fire going, he always had a problem with something. It didn't matter what, his sleeping bag got messed up, his zipper wasn't working, his tent was this thing and the other thing, and he always found a way to fix it. It had the other tape and the glue and the gum and the thing. He always found a way to fix it. But the problem was, when he couldn't fix it, it usually came back in pieces. He didn't want to have to deal with it again. So, Ian, keep messing with things. Keep building those fires. Okay? The last person I have here, which I have not talked about, is Charles, my son. I never stepped away from him. But again, I had the privilege of going on almost as many camping trips as him. I haven't hit 219, but I'm still rocking the chevron, so we'll see what happens. But I had an opportunity to go and spend a long time in the woods with her son. And let me tell you, you out there, if you can spend time with your family, a really long time with your family, it is incredible. Absolutely incredible. 8 years going to Goshen. 8. He went to every Goshen, and he put on the last 2 merit badges from this summer's Goshen that he earned. They're sitting on his sash right now. He turned 18 on August 5th, and he returned from Goshen August 2nd. So he took full advantage of the Goshens. Let me look at my notes here. When you look at the records of the Scouts, what this troop provides is opportunity for these young men to partake in the outdoor experience. It is amazing the opportunity that are given these young men to achieve and to experience new and incredible things that one would never, ever consider themselves capable of doing. One of the most impressive things, and I'll end here very soon, hey, the Redskins don't start playing until 4:30, right? And that is, I may have spent 7 years of my life out in the woods with my son, but on every bike trip and on every hiking trip, I never saw him. I never saw him. From day one, he was out in front. He hung with the big boys, and he hung out, and he pedaled his life to stay up with the big boys. Same thing with the hiking. LaCastro can vouch for that. He hung out with the big boys. He followed that Tootsie Roll suit, let me tell you. Can't miss it. But I never saw him. And then I said, you know what, that's okay. We got an Acevedo in the front and an Acevedo in the back, so all's good. But I wanted to end with the fact that the other day I was given, a while ago, I was given a Boy Scout handbook from 1943, which is my father-in-law's Boy Scout handbook. And I was going through the pages, and in those pages, as part of the introduction to scouting, I came across a section that introduced the Pioneer Night. I thought that was interesting. When they started the program, they actually had a group which is called Pioneer Nights. And I thought that was very fitting, that we are the pioneers. And that these gentlemen are going to be knighted here very shortly, to coin the term loosely, as Eagle Scouts. And I just wanted to end with, as pioneers, don't stop doing what you're doing. Keep going, set the example, test the boundaries, and achieve great things. And as knights, you operate with the code of conduct, Scout Oath, and Scout Law. Congratulations, guys.
Thank you, Mr. Acevedo. And now, Mike Salem, one of our assistant scoutmasters and an Eagle Scout himself, will administer the Eagle Scout pledge. So, Mr. Salem.
Thank you, Matt. Welcome to St. John's, everyone. I think the last time we had an Eagle Court of Honor here was about 6 years ago. And was wondering why it took such a long time to have another one, and then I realized we have 6 here, so we divide that by 6, so we've had 1 a year for the last 8 years. At this time, I'd like to I have the privilege of administering the Eagle Scout Pledge to our 6 young gentlemen here. Will Tyler, Ross, Ian, Gerry, Charles, and Brian please stand? The Eagle Scout candidates will now take the Eagle Scout Pledge. As the candidates take their pledge for the first time, will those Eagle Scouts who are present in the auditorium please stand and reaffirm their pledge with us at this time. Wow. Wow. Will each of you please give the Scout sign and repeat after me in unison? On my honor, I will do my best.
On my honor, I will do my best.
To do my duty to God.
To do my duty to God.
On my honor, I will do my best.
On my honor, I will do my best.
To do my duty to my country.
To do my duty to my country.
I reaffirm my allegiance.
I reaffirm my allegiance.
To the 3 promises of the Scout Oath.
To the 3 promises of the Scout Oath.
I thoughtfully recognize.
I thoughtfully recognize.
And take upon myself.
Take upon myself
the obligations and responsibility of the rank of Eagle Scout. On my honor, I will do my best.
On my honor, I will do my best.
To make my training an example.
To make my training an example.
And to make my rank and influence.
And to make my rank and influence.
Strongly count for better scouting.
Strongly count for better scouting.
And for better citizenship.
And for better citizenship.
In my troop.
In my troop.
In my community.
In my community.
And in my contact with other people.
And in my contact with other people.
To this, I pledge my sacred honor.
To this, I pledge my sacred honor.
2.
Scoutmaster to the podium for the Eagle Scout Charge and presentation of Eagle Scout.
Thank you, Matthew. I charge all of you to enter this Eagle Scout Brotherhood, holding ever before you without reservation the ideals of honor and service. By repeating of Eagle Scout pledge before your fellow members, you have all become Eagle Scouts. Though the words you used just now are similar to those by which you joined Scouting, today they mean more than you ever could have been at that time or at any time in the day. When you pledge yourself on your sacred honor, using the same words that you found at the end of the Declaration of Independence, you seal your eternal loyalty to the code of the Eagle Scout. You accept this charge. By the authority vested in me by the National Court of Honor of the Boy Scouts of America, it is my privilege and pleasure to pronounce you an Eagle Scout. May the oath you have taken remain true in your heart. Ladies and gentlemen, Scouts and Scouters, I present our newest Eagle Scout. can't tell you how proud I am of these guys, what they've gone through to earn these ranks. It's quite an honor to be a scoutmaster. Many people here touched on, we've got five assistant scoutmasters that come out of this group and give so much, not just to these young men, but to others in the troop. For those of you who've never been to a Troop 457 function, we're a family here, and we work together to produce these leaders. Somebody asked earlier how many people we have, 78. We're proud of that number, but what we're mostly proud of is the quality of those scouts, the quantity. I'm so proud of how many guys showed up here today for this family. And our scouts who graduated out and going on to other things that are back here today to celebrate with us. And so many of our scout families that their sons have graduated out and they've taken the time to be here with us today to celebrate these young men and their families and accomplishments. So thank you everyone for being here and great job with these guys. I'm now handing out their evening medals and the mothers of Quinnan for show of progress. Boys also receives the Eagle patch, which goes on their uniform in one of those occasions. Now pass out their Eagle neckerchiefs, their neckerchief slides. We'll remove their troop badges here to their hearts. Put on their Eagle Scout. Families also received the snazzy bumper sticker. Quinnan now get to be the Scouts. Scouts can now put on the mother's pin. One of the mothers. What comes next? Finish hard, boys. Lastly, I present each one of the scouts with this token for myself and the troop. On one side is the scout oath, and the other is the scout ball. The scout oath and the ball is bedrock of the scout program. Eagle Scout is a lifestyle, and our lives are modeled after this oath and ball. From that close to the heart. If you're ever in doubt, you look forced to go down, or to yoke the ball and the crew, and make the right decision.
Thank you, Mr. McGovern. Now we will hear from our Eagle Scouts. Gerry, Quinnan.
All right. I would like to start by thanking all the people who have helped me over the past 7 years in more ways than they will ever know. First off, all of the other scouts who supported me and made this such an enjoyable and memorable experience, as well as all the troop leaders, namely Mr. McGovern, Mrs. Soukup, Mr. Acevedo, Mr. Patterson, and Mr. McWilliams. I'd also like to thank everyone involved in planning and executing my Eagle project. In particular, the Director of Operations at Manna Food Center, Kevin Trosser. And most importantly, I'd like to thank my brother, John Quinnan, for being a role model to me in and out of scouting, and my parents, because without their encouragement and support, I probably would not be receiving this honor today. I would like to share with you one of my first memories from scouting. As a freshly minted Boy Scout, I eagerly awaited my first camping trip to Goshen Scout Reservation, which, for those of you who don't know, is a 2-week camping trip in which Scouts get the majority of their merit badges. It was on this trip that I realized I had difficulty sleeping outdoors. On the first night, when I couldn't sleep, I stepped out of my tent for some fresh air, and I happened to run into an older Scout I had never met. This Scout easily could have gone on his way, but I must have looked somewhat distraught because he asked me if I was feeling all right. After explaining that I was simply having trouble sleeping, he insisted on staying up and talking with me. The fact that someone I didn't know would take the time out of his night to help make me feel comfortable had such an impact on me that, like Nick Brinker, I want to become a role model for other people in my life. My scouting career culminated in my Eagle Project. The Eagle Project is meant to be the most challenging requirement in scouting, as a scout must develop an idea for a project, contact an organization that could benefit from it, acquire funds and materials, recruit people to help, and give directions as you execute your project. Mine consisted of building 6-inch wooden risers for shelving units at the Manna Food Center in Gaithersburg, Maryland, in order to comply with the Montgomery County Health Code. There were 21 shelves total, some reaching up to almost 20 feet tall, and all loaded with food. The experience taught me to keep a cool head in challenging situations and to overcome adversity. It also put me in an environment where many people relied on me for guidance as I tested my leadership abilities. There is a reason that the honor of Eagle Scout is held in such high esteem. The road travel to get here was a difficult one, but anything worth doing is, and it makes the achievement that much sweeter. Much like joining a fraternity, through achieving the rank of Eagle Scout, we became a member of the prestigious few that can claim to hold that honor. Unlike most awards, this one is not given to us to boost our egos, but rather as a reminder of our duty to our neighbors, our country, and to God. Every time we recall a camping trip, or a particularly grueling merit badge, we are reminded of the person we have pledged to be. I would like to issue my Eagle Challenge to someone who's actually not yet a Boy Scout, Griffin Quinnan. My nephew recently became a Cub Scout, and I'm excited to see him in the Boy Scout uniform soon. Thank you all for making the trip out here for us when I'm sure there's a football game you would love to be watching. I will leave you with a quote I read online that I think perfectly describes the importance of scouting today.
In a world where so much that takes place is done out of obligation and social pressure, Boy Scouting provides meaning to an age group that is routinely denied it. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you all for coming out. It really means a lot to me, and I'm sure it means a lot to you guys too, to see all these faces up here. In case you don't already know me, I'm Charles Acevedo, a member of that ridiculous family back there. So many people in this troop have had such a positive effect on me and on these guys that it would go such a crime if they weren't mentioned. That being said, I'm not going to thank every single person because we'd still be sitting here by the time the next Super Bowl comes around. But I would like to send a couple of special thanks out to people who have had a strong showing in time. First and foremost, I'd like to thank Mr. Williams for being an amazing organizer, executor, and participant in all the backpacking trips I've had such a pleasure going on, so thank you, sir. I'd like to thank Mr. Wallmeyer, Mr. London. Unfortunately, they're not here, but thank you guys for putting up with me. We went to Philmont, and for being excellent adult advisors as well. I would like to thank Ms. Erat for kicking me in the backside a little to get my paperwork in before the time ran out. I definitely wouldn't have got it done without her, so thank you very much. Thank you. I'd like to thank Ms. Soukup for being possibly, arguably, the greatest assistant scoutmaster the world has ever seen. Us riding crew through 7 years and did it efficiently. We got an Eagle Scout. I don't know how she did it, but it was done well. I'd like to thank Mr. Magone for being the best scoutmaster a troop could hope for, and for telling a bunch of hilarious stories. I'd like to thank Mr. Patterson for devoting so much of his time to scouting, to his two sons, to the communities, to everything. Being a great role model and for being the subject matter of many of Mr. Magone's hilarious stories. I'd like to thank everyone who saw in my heart to participate in the Eagle Scout project. What we did is we painted fire hydrants. We had 32 or 31, no, 29. Yeah, 29 fire hydrants. 39? 40, yeah, 39 fire hydrants. It was a tough thing. We had, it was ridiculous. But I'd like to thank everyone who came out because I was really worried that we weren't going to have enough people. And we ended up having a couple people less than I was hoping, and unfortunately it was very slow going. So I'd like to first apologize for a terrible project. And I'd like to apologize for anyone who stole some paint in my car. I think the hospital has some, sorry about that. And just took up that experience with me. I'd like to thank all the guys in my patrol for being probably the most amazing set of guys I've had the pleasure of camping with and knowing. And everyone who's out in the crowd who's out here with me, I'd like to thank them as well. I'd like to thank the JPJ Patrol. These guys have always been role models to me, for being Eagle Scouts and for being outstanding gentlemen. I really look up to you guys. I was going to say, I was going to thank my brother for making me always look good. But unfortunately, he's out sick today, and I think that would be in bad taste. So instead, I say to my brother who's not here that he is a very nice guy. He's an amazing brother, loyal, hilarious, smarter than he knows. And I hope to see him up here in a couple of years, and I hope to see him do well. Last and certainly not least, I'd like to thank someone who's very special to me. Somebody I respect and look up to, somebody who has had the most influence on me in my scouting career since my first pair of boots up until the completion of my Eagle Scout project. And that is none other than my father, Ralph Acevedo. You have been my favorite scoutmaster, my favorite teacher, my favorite track coach, and my favorite hiking partner. You have been there for me by my side on most of the camping trips I've been on and all the track meets I've competed in. I know it hasn't been easy all the time, but I know you've made your efforts and you've done a very good job. I'm proud to be able to call such a loving and great man my father. Thank you, Dad, for everything. Thank you all for coming out today to this amazing event, and I would like to issue my Eagle Challenge to a young friend of mine, Andrew Contreras. I think I saw him earlier. There he is.
that time I was, to put it kindly, a long shot. I wasn't exactly the best guy in my patrol, and I was the smallest guy in the troop for about 3 years. I had a lot of misadventures in my early years. My first backpacking trip in '05, I brought up the rear by about a mile, with only 15 pounds of gear, because at the time I only weighed 65. I even was in my rock collecting days on that trip, so eventually my backpack started getting pretty heavy. A little interesting during the camp chores or participating in meetings, I frequently got hurt. Everything from burns to knife scars to a broken arm at the pioneering station my second year at Goshen Scout Camp. Mr. McGovern and Mr. Patterson drove all the way to Charlottesville at midnight to check on me at the University of Virginia Hospital. I got to where I am now with a lot of help. Mr. Acevedo, Mr. Broom, and Mr. Patterson. Still working on trips, even though I have trouble pulling my own weight. Mr. Patterson didn't complain when I spent my whole week at San Lucas Sea Base hunting shark's teeth instead of trying to learn how to sail. She did object when I ate nothing but oatmeal for 4 days at Kerr Lake without. Mr. Acevedo would find stuff for me to enjoy on camping trips. He encouraged me to run a cooking demonstration at Weekend's weekends. My patrol put up with me and helped me along the way a lot. At our fitness merit badge test in 8th grade, or rather 9th grade, we had to do a mile run. I was so slow that the guys in our patrol finished their laps and they kept running with me for my laps. Finally, they picked me up and carried me to the final lap. I found things I was good at, like cooking donuts at the cooking demo every weekend. I also was really good at building campfires, and I got along great with the younger scouts and Denshi for 3 years with them. I eventually got big enough and focused enough to be helpful on eagle projects. I laid brick patios, spread mulch, installed fences, lantern boxes, and painted everything from cabinets to fire hydrants. I even got organized enough to handle my own eagle project at Second Chance Wildlife Refuge. We built and installed wooden nest boxes to clear the nature trail. I have many great memories from my favorite campouts. I got comfortable with camp cooking at Goshen and all those camperies and igloos weekends. You had to put a lid on the cooking oil when they caught fire at the cooking demonstration 2 years ago. I remember sliding down the ice-covered trail at Valley Forge on our backs because it was frozen over. Survivor trips with Mr. Acevedo were best because I used my ingenuity to make a shelter out of just a tarp and a rope. I loved tubing behind Mr. McGovern's butt at Will Castro's Eastern Shore weekend. He tried to shake me off, but I hung on, even when I flipped upside down and was towed underwater. I like big trail trips at Rose Beach and hanging out on the boardwalk with the guys from the Ranger Patrol. I was finally ready to be a leader when I became a Denshi, first for Pack 457 and then for Pack 1414. Denshi worked for Cub Scouts to help them learn veterans. We also tell them what Boy Scouts is like. This is when I learned how to be a good role model. I spent 2 years helping Mr. Vegas's Newborn set, where I really got to know the guys who are now our second-year scouts. I'm so proud of Ryan, Jamie, Garrett, Kevin, and the others who joined Troop 457. You guys are great scouts. So here I am. Just want to say to all the younger scouts who are having a hard time, think they don't fit in, stick with the troop. The older scouts and assistant scoutmaster will help make you the kind of scout you want to be. You'll find friends, whether they're older or younger than you. Some of my best friends will be sure for 10th and 11th grade scouts. I couldn't have done my Eagle project without all the younger guys who came out to help me. One day, you'll be undertaking your own Eagle rank. With that, I would like to ask Ryan Torkey to stand up. Ryan, I challenge you to achieve the rank of Eagle Scout. Do you accept this challenge?
Hello, I'm Apter, and I want to thank you all for coming to our Eagle Scout ceremony. I started my scouting career as a young Tiger Scout at 457, posted at Flower Valley Elementary School. Having recently moved to Maryland, some of my earliest friends were made as a Tiger Scout, and those friends continue to be some of the closest I have today. Although much of my early Cub Scout career is a blur to me, I still remember events such as the Pinewood Derby and the exotic meetings such as that. The transition to Boy Scouts made much easier than my prior years in Cub Scouts, but I knew that I had much to learn. The most challenging endeavor for a first-year Boy Scout is memorizing Scout oath and law.
spent countless hours practicing both, trying to memorize this essential part of the Scout, and today they are almost second nature to me. At the time, the Scout oath and law were just statements that I needed to memorize, but as I advanced through the ranks, I learned that they are guides to live by. Every summer, our troop goes to the Ocean Scout Reservation in Virginia. Grouping a large amount of scouts and adult leaders and coordinating our troop is one of the most challenging tasks. I was fortunate enough to be the senior patrol leader of our troop while we attended Ocean one summer. It was a very challenging experience, but its rewards were great. With the help of my assistant senior patrol leaders, we were able to organize the troop and have yet another successful summer outing in Gerry. The trip was not without its problems, which included a bear cub wandering into our campsite. But together, through what we had learned from scouting and a little help from the adult leaders, we were able to persevere. Much of scouting does include taking the time to study and learn about many different topics, but some of the most lasting lessons come from at-the-moment situations. The scouting experience is one of the best teachers in life. As many of you know, every Eagle Scout was taking an extensive service project in order to stay in the rank. My project was building a large storage shed for the early childhood center located at Soukup Synagogue. After learning of the need for more storage space, I thought I could help solve the problem by building a shed. With much help from Roy Pollack, Sam Friederberg, the director of the Early Child Center, and the executive director of the synagogue, respectively, I was able to begin construction. I also cannot be more thankful for the building expertise of Mr. McGovern and Mr. Patterson, because this was my first time I had ever attempted any form of construction of this scale. On the first day of the build, I was forced to cancel due to rain, but this did not prevent me from close friends and begin to dig out the foundation. Besides for the downpour and the unimaginable amount of mud produced from digging in the rain, the foundation was mostly completed. From that point on, it only took a few more weekends before the shed was fully completed. Now, every time I attend my synagogue, I can go out back to look at the large mark that I left for future generations to use. Many of the adult leaders emphasize that as an older scout, you have to be a role model for the younger scouts. I know personally, the impressions that older scouts left on me when I was new to scouting pushed me to where I am today. Our troop prides itself on being highly active and having numerous older scouts help guide away from younger ones. I owe much of my success to scouting to the way Troop 457 runs itself and the goals that it sets in place for scouts. Some of the most influential people have been scouting with me from the start, such as Mrs. Soukup, Mr. Patterson, and of course, my scoutmaster, Mr. McGovern. I also want to thank Mr. Bruin, Mr. Acevedo, Rockwell teachers Mr. Krause, and Mr. Barnes, who all helped guide me through my scouting career and school career. I also cannot forget my parents, who have supported me my entire way throughout my years as scouts. Each of these people helped to teach me what I know today and made lasting impressions on my life. I now want to direct my Eagle Challenge to Aiden McGovern, because just as the path to Eagle has changed my life for the better, I know it will do the same for you, and I know you are very much capable of achieving the rank of Eagle Scout. As I venture through the world as an Eagle Scout, the lessons I have learned will stay with me and help me make smart decisions for the rest of my life. The path to Eagle is a challenge, but the rewards that you learn while on the path prepare you to take on the world. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Patterson. Scouting for me began at a very early age when my older brother joined Troop 457. Now, granted, my attendance to meetings was infrequent as I was only 4 years old. I almost always made it to the Port of Lions, and I always made it to the Eagle Projects. The Eagle Projects have always been my favorite part of the Boy Scouts. I've been to nearly every single Eagle Project the troop did between about the time I was 4 years old until I was in 8th grade. I always looked up to these older scouts because of the hard work and determination they put into all of their projects. Be it clearing a nature trail, laying pavers to make a brick path, or building a shed or a playhouse or some other structure. Now, having gone through the process that so many others have gone before me in this troop, I realized just now the intense amount of effort it takes to complete this rank, and I really can appreciate what those before me have done. The first person I'd like to thank is the driving force behind Troop 457, Mr. McGovern. Mr. McGovern is the scoutmaster and the reason why Troop 457 is Troop 457. He's built up a reputation for not only himself, but the troop, where
you talk to any other scouting individual in our area, and you tell them you're part of Troop 457, they know what that means. Being a part of Troop 457 brands you with an exceptional sort of leadership and character that's just been developed from the accomplishments that the troop has made over these past 17, 18 years. I don't know how long the troop's been. Right? And it's just, and you get that transfer to you just being a part of this machine that we call a troop. The next person I'd like to thank is the most recent driving force behind the Eagle Scouts, and that would be Mrs. Arad. Almost any of the past, probably 15 or 20 Eagle Scouts that have come through the troop can tell you that very large part of what happened for them was Mrs. Arad stopping them at each meeting on their way to it, interrogating them on their progress on their paperwork, planning, meetings, troop requirements, and boards of reviews to complete the rank of Eagle. Some people even call it a slave driver. Pushing us further and further towards our goal. In addition, I'd like to thank all the Scoutmasters that have gotten to where I am. Mr. Acevedo, Mrs. Soukup, Mr. Broom, Mr. McWilliams, Mr. Stain, a few, of course, my parents. And I'd also like to thank Mr. Barnes for sacrificing his attendance at the Ravens game to be here for the loss. The most important influence Scouts can have when they begin are the elder Scouts in the troop. They provide an example of leadership for you to follow and a goal for you to achieve. This goal is not a destination. This goal is not a rank. This goal is a certain character that needs to be present within a Boy Scout in order for him to be even considered for the rank of Eagle. I feel so honored to have been a part of the Troop 457 family for these past 14 years. And I sincerely hope the future Scouts in this troop realize just how lucky they are to be a part of Troop 457 as well. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Tyler Rodriguez, and I can officially say I'm an Eagle Scout. There are 7 years of work, frustration, experience, excitement, and boredom. In these 7 years, I've spent hour after hour roaming the woods. I've learned to build fire and work with others. But above all, better than any lesson taught in Scouts, I've discovered something I can claim to be truly and inarguably meaningful: Boy Scouts. Out of all the possible programs for children to join, there is no doubt in my mind that Boy Scouts stands among the best. No other program gives young children the opportunity for themselves to realize they are no less capable in achievement than anyone else. I would say that when I was 11 years old and so mature, the most exciting part about being able to join Boy Scouts was the idea that I was able to play with knives, axes, saws, and fires. Few other recreational groups would likely tell the 11-year-old boy that I was that I could be given the responsibility to handle myself just fine around these dangerous tools. Because, gosh, when you think about it, 11 is a really young age, and knives can be really sharp. And if you use them wrong, you could be dead before you enter the 7th grade. It would be easy to believe that this would happen to a lot of Boy Scouts, but fortunately for us, the BSA track record is pretty good. But Boy Scouts changed me. It's funny, for a period of time at the beginning of middle school and at the beginning of high school, I sort of didn't know what to do with myself. So I would just play baseball and go on with my studies. But other than playing baseball, there was no foreseeable solution for myself. And then something changed. I don't remember what, but I'm glad it happened. I'm not saying that I'm living solely for Scouts, but eventually I realized that the type of person the program tries to build its youth to become was the person I was today. It's daunting for new Scouts to see an Eagle Scout and hear all the requirements it takes to earn the award, while having to maintain a re-owned moral character. However, the thing that nobody usually tells them, or you, is that the person is just a version of yourself that's waiting to get out and only needs a bit of encouragement and guidance to do so. To be honest, I never thought I could reach Eagle. Even as I moved closer, I never felt like the type of person exemplified in the Scout Manual. But now that I'm here, I realize that I never really tried to be the moral character of an Eagle, because I already was.
The requirements leading to the rank aren't meant to build young boys into Eagle Scouts. The requirements simply made them realize that they were good people with moral worth the entire time. By presenting the boys with extreme difficulty, and let's be honest here, camping is not at all easy. The BSA allows boys to try to achieve as much as they possibly can. No 11-year-old could possibly complete all the requirements without help and improvement over time, but no one is going to stop him from trying. And this above all is the greatest thing a child can be given, the belief that he is worth something. At this exact moment, not that he will become someone later on in his future. I can tell you what I've developed in my years of scouting. There are lists of the positives, hopes, courage, and one is wholly apparent now, identity. I cannot imagine who I would be without what I've experienced. Each adventure stands in my mind fresh and vivid. And as I piece them together and place them one after each other to form a 7-year thread, I've discovered the most important thing the scouting program has given me, a childhood. There are so many people today who have helped me achieve the Eagle rank. First of all, there are my parents. They have always been supportive of my scouting, and at the time when I felt I was getting nowhere in scouting and considered quitting, both of them were there to talk me some sense into me. I know I'm not the best son, but I love both of you with all my heart. Thanks, Mom and Dad. I'd also like to take the time to acknowledge the help of certain individuals who have affected my scouting. Mr. Patterson, Ms. Soukup, Mr. Acevedo, Mr. Williams, Mr. Broom, Mr. Rath, and all of my instructors from my merit badges, all of my assistant scoutmasters who I unfortunately can't name because it's a lot, my friends, my family, and my brother Michael Rodriguez, who was not able to attend. And I'd also like to thank Bikes for the World, the organization which helped me with my Eagle Series project. However, there's one man who has made a huge impact on my life and has done little more than continue to give to others. He has always been someone I've looked up to, and that's Mr. McGovern, our Scoutmaster. Finally, I would like to thank all of you for coming out tonight and supporting us Eagle Scouts. I wish the best to all of you, and may we forever continue to enjoy the journey of life as I have for the past 7 years. I now would like Mickey Polsky to stand up for a second. I challenge Mickey Polsky to become an Eagle Scout and stand where I am today in the next few years. So, if you can, just put a thumb up or something.
And now Mr. McGovern will come forward and deliver the Scoutmaster's with it.
Here for our Eagle Scouts. As I listened to Mr. Patterson's remarks a little bit earlier, I was not surprised that he and I were thinking somewhat alike. Actually, I wasn't surprised, I was really proud. We have before us today 6 new Eagle Scouts. Each has achieved the highest rank in scouting. In September, Charles and Brian went before their Eagle boards along with Eric Ortiz and Jordan Lang. As I went from room to room speaking to the members of each board and telling them about the scout they were about to interview, I was struck by how different their introductions were. Although they completed the exact same requirements to attain the rank of Eagle Scout, their paths to Eagle were very different. As I look at these 6 today, I'm struck by the same thought. Some excelled in leadership. We have 3 former SPLs here. Others excelled at working with younger scouts and teaching. Some became avid outdoorsmen. As everyone said, Charles holds the scout record to our troop for nights camping. Others provided hundreds of hours of service to their communities by participating in Eagle projects and service projects. And while each charted his own path, they all arrived at the same point, the rank of Eagle Scout. I also believe that on their trail to Eagle, each of these scouts grew from young boys to young men, and that each of them met the goals of the Scout program. There are three goals or aims in Scouting. The first is growth in moral strength and character. That is who you are, your personal qualities, values, your outlook. The Scout oath, the Scout ball. The second is participating citizenship, your obligations to others, to society, and the government that presides over that society. The third is the development of physical, mental, and emotional fitness. Fitness, you're well-tuned and healthy. Mental, able to think and solve problems. Emotional, self-control, courage, and self-respect. These are manly virtues. Remain true to them. I'd like to share a moment with you. I recently experienced a very powerful moment, me personally. I was watching C-SPAN. They were covering the death of Senator Daniel Inouye of Hawaii. They were showing the casket laying in state in the rotunda of the U.S. Capitol. Crowds filed slowly by, paying their last respects. Then the line was halted, and former Senator Bob Dole was helped to the side of his old friend to pay his last respects. Dan Inouye was the second longest serving senator in U.S. history. He represented Hawaii in the Senate for 56 and a half years. He was a Democrat. Bob Dole served in the Senate for over 38 years, retiring in 1996 when he was the Republican candidate for president. In Congress today, some treat members of the opposite party as the enemy. These two from different parties were friends for almost 70 years. Watching the news, we see congressmen and senators insult and ridicule one another and engage in personal attacks against their opponents. Bob Dole, speaking of Daniel Inouye, said, "He treated everyone fairly, and never once do I ever recall him being critical of another colleague, Republican or Democrat." Senator Inouye was one of the Senate giants. He believed in civility and compromise when necessary, and was a good friend. Yes, compromise. Both these men were spoken of as compromisers. They were willing to make a deal to get something done. Compromisers. These must be weak men. Today we watch a Congress full of hardliners, people of both parties who will not compromise. 60 days after Hurricane Sandy, people still wait for help. The country staggers from physical cliff to budget cliff. After every mass shooting, they promise action. Still we wait. These are not leaders. These are posers. Daniel Inouye and Bob Dole came from the World War II generation, the greatest generation. The generation that won the greatest war in American history in 4 years. They believed a good plan, executed now, beats a great plan later. They learned to work as a team, to compromise and sacrifice for the good of the nation. Both of these men served their nation in World War II. Daniel Inouye could not enlist at the outbreak of the war because he was Japanese American. They were barred from service to their nation. In 1943, that restriction was lifted, and he immediately enlisted. He served in the 442nd Combat Infantry Regiment that served in Italy. This entire regiment was made up of Japanese Americans serving their nation. It became one of the most highly decorated units in the U.S. Army. In April of 1945, Daniel Inouye was critically wounded. He lost his right arm to that wound. Bob Dole joined the Army. He joined the Dalton 10th Mountain Division, a unit that's still around today. He too served in Italy. He too was wounded and lost the use of his right arm. He says that him and Daniel Inouye were wounded 2 weeks apart and 2 mountains away. He spent years in therapy, but in the hospital in Michigan, he met Daniel Inouye for the first time, and they became lifelong friends. I watched as Senator Dole was helped to the casket. He gently touched the casket, he stepped back, and slowly raised his left arm, his bosom, and saluted his friend, his fellow soldier, Medal of Honor winner, Senator Daniel Inouye. No, these were not weak men. These were good men. They were good leaders. When it came to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, there could be no compromises. They proved they would fight to protect our nation and her people, no matter what the cost. As the greatest generation slips away, a new one takes its place. You gentlemen are part of that generation. Do your duty to God and your country. Give to those in need. Be leaders. Be men of character. God bless our nation, and God bless our newest Eagle Scouts. Gentlemen, thank you.
I would now like to call on Mr. Broom to lead us in the benediction.
This is a prayer that my scoutmaster used to close out every scout meeting in my troop over in Kensington, Maryland. Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who has granted us life, sustained us, and enabled us to reach this occasion. Dearest Lord, teach me to be generous. Teach me to serve as you deserve, to give and not to count the cost, to fight and not to heed the wounds, to toil and not to seek for rest, to labor and not to ask for a reward, say that knowing I am doing your will. Amen.
Thank you, Mr. Broom. Would everyone please stand for the retiring of our national anthem? Color guard, advance. Please join me in the Scout Wall. The Scout is trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent. 2. Color guard, retire the colors. Thank you. This concludes our Eagle Scout ceremony. All are invited to join us for some refreshments. Thank you for being with us today, and congratulations